Hi, everyone.
Right.
I'm Anna Rothschild. I am a science reporter and the host of Science Magic Show Hooray, which is a science series for kids and also just the young at heart, produced here at the Washington Post. I am so happy to be with you all today, and I'd like to send a special shout out to our audience watching across Post platforms, including on Twitch. So the vice president's a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
But we have a very special panel for you guys today. I am delighted to welcome this accomplished group of astronauts. So first off, we have Leland Melvin and Nicole Stott. They are both retired astronauts from the shuttle era, and I think between the two of them, they've spent over 120 days in space. Then we have Victor Glover. He'll be among the first to fly on SpaceX's Crew Dragon. And finally, we have Chris Ferguson, who will be on the first flight of Boeing's commercial craft, the Starliner. Mm-hmm. So the US hasn't sent anyone to space from US soil in about 7 years. And I'm wondering what, in your perspective, the sort of American perspective of astronauts is, and sort of our space exploration in general is, and how do you think these new missions are going to change that sort of public perception? Nicole, do you want to start?
Sure. I think I'm really excited to get astronauts launching again from US soil. I'm really excited to see these two gentlemen make their way to space on those vehicles. And I think that one of the things that's happened as a result of this 7 years between that last shuttle flight that Chris commanded and now is that in a thankful way, because I think we should have kept flying the space shuttle myself, but is that there's an awareness that's been like revitalized. We went through a little bit of a slump where I think Sandy said in the earlier platform, like, well, what are you guys doing now that NASA, shut down? And NASA being associated with the space shuttle. And I like that there's this resurgence, there's this awareness, and that we are, again, considering that not only as US astronauts, but our international community, we have, for the last 20 years, been circling this planet, 16 times a day on the International Space Station, peacefully, quietly, successfully doing one of, if not the most complex things we've ever done. And I think even as we look at launching again from US soil, we are looking at doing that as a mix of this international community that's going to continue to take us even further into space together.
Space has been this very sort of international communal effort, for a long time now. And how do you see these new launches from US soil potentially changing that or enhancing that? Leland, do you want to take it?
I think the biggest part of it is we're going to look at this commercial entity that's bringing up, SpaceX and Boeing and all of these vehicles going up, where kids are now looking at not just working for NASA anymore, but working for this private sector. And when Elon launched his Tesla Roadster to space, you saw how many tweets and follows that happened with that. And I think it's a way that we'll get more people looking at the space program and more kids thinking about science and being a entrepreneur and an inventor and doing these things. So I think it's going to really revolutionize the way that we can get more scientists in the mix in the future.
Do you think that, do any of you sort of see these new missions as a play for American dominance as well?
No,
Yeah.
I think there's always going to be a mix of that. I would like to think of it as like a leadership, a way forward for all of us to continue working together. I think about the partnership that we have in place that's so wonderful. We had a lot of people saying, well, why are we launching with the Russians on the Soyuz spacecraft? I'm like, we've been doing that in parallel with shuttle for years. And so it just became, like public knowledge, I guess, when the shuttle retired. And I think that's what it is. Maybe I'm naive. I don't like to think of it as a dominance thing. I like to think of it as a leadership thing, as an active participant in what we are doing for humanity to move forward.
I think this is essential, really. We witnessed a couple of weeks ago, the Russian Soyuz had an incident where they safely recovered a crew, but they didn't make it to orbit. It's very important we have global redundancy to get back and forth to the International Space Station. We've been without it for 7 years, and here's a chance not only to enjoy this resurgence in human spaceflight from the United States of America, but to do it in a commercial fashion, right? Do it sort of a fee for service. And will what happen in space, will what happened successfully to the airlines over 100 years, eventually happen in space? We'll be able to safely go back and forth and bring the costs down. And what will this all mean 50 years from now?
And how cool is it that, Victor, I think you, on your flight, are looking at not just going as U.S. astronauts, but potentially having international astronauts on that flight with you when you go your first time to space.
Absolutely.
On one of our new commercial vehicles.
Absolutely, and to reference the question that you asked earlier, I think it's going to re-emphasize what we do and what we've been doing. Since the shuttle retired in 2011, NASA has not been sitting on our hands at all. We've been working with these two partners to develop this capability, and we've been also developing Orion and SLS, our capability that once we do successfully commercialize low Earth orbit, as our national leadership has asked us to do for several years, we can move beyond, into the vicinity of the moon and the gateway, and then eventually onto Mars. And so it's getting the awareness that we are doing those things, though. When the launch happens in your backyard, I think we hit people in the heart and we encourage them to go fill their heads with the details of what we're doing. And that's what I think is going to change.
Right. So I would love to ask you a little bit about how you're feeling in preparation for your very first time in space. What are the emotions going through your head? And, how have your colleagues here, even on stage, helped to kind of boost you up and prepare you for this trip?
Actually, I'm glad you said it that way. So to watch what they've done, I was very inspired. And again, that inspirational piece is a very important part of this. And so to see what they were doing and the inspiration that it gave me to pursue this career field, it's great to just sit up here with them and to commune with these veterans. And then just being assigned to my first mission, period, was amazing. And then to add to it, I'm a test pilot. In the Navy, I flew the Hornet and the Super Hornet and got to test out software and hardware. And so to fly a new spaceship is just, that also is a dream. And so to combine them, I kind of feel like I'm getting more than my fair share, But it's awesome. Training for space is great. And flying on and off of a carrier is one of the most amazing things I've done in my professional life. So I really hope that launching into low Earth orbit, it beats that. So.
Excellent. Chris, you have the sort of unique position of having trained for missions in two different ways. And I'm wondering how your current training is different from the training that you did for the shuttle era.
So, of course, I have a couple shuttle flights under my belt with a few of these esteemed individuals. And about 7 years ago, I made a big shift over to the Boeing company. And the premise was, hey, we'd love to have you come over, maybe parlay some of your experience you had in shuttle. We're developing this new commercial crew spacecraft, and ... we'd love to have you fly it. So as you can imagine, a guy who really enjoys the challenges associated with spaceflight, to not only have a chance to fly a new one, but also to be engaged at the ground level in the development of it. So, so to speak, have my fingerprints, in addition to, of course, to this great Boeing team that's been putting this vehicle together for the last 7 years. And it's wonderful. And now we're back in training again. I sort of am back in my old stomping grounds in Houston, Texas, spending time with as a matter of fact, one of the individuals I'm going to fly with, Eric Bowe, we flew together on STS-126. So even though I've been separated for about 7 years, it's great to be back in the fold again. And, it's a badgeless world. We're all in training. We're all there to accomplish a single objective. I may happen to wear a Boeing badge. Victor wears a NASA badge, but really the end objective is to safely get back and forth to space and reestablish America's presence as a launch provider.
Can you actually talk a little bit more about what the collaboration between Boeing and SpaceX and NASA are like, and sort of what role NASA plays in this relationship?
I don't know, Victor, if you want to start and give the SpaceX part.
Absolutely. So, the company is designing the vehicle and building the vehicle, but we, as the operator, the user, and eventually the risk taker when we get to launch day, we give input. And as the rookie in the group, I give less input, but the veterans that are a part of this, they give their input from their experience, and that helps influence the design. And so it is a good partnership. I think SpaceX's culture and NASA's culture are different. And when we get to launch day, I think we will have both moved toward this center and learned from each other and appreciated the best that each of the entities brings to the table.
And from a Boeing perspective, so NASA, or Victor talks about sort of the provider. Well, we are the provider. So this is an interesting thing in that we have, we've been instrumental in putting the design together and getting ready to fly it, and then we will actually, have some skin in the game, so to speak, by having a Boeing person on board.
Really?
And the question is, really, I think Boeing wants to. They want to emphasize that, hey, it's Boeing product, it's got a Boeing name on the side. We're going to put a Boeing test pilot in there to prove, in fact, that we're in the ground level of what hopefully will be a resurgence in commercial transportation for people and cargo back and forth to low Earth orbit.
Great.
What's really interesting to me about this too is that when you look at it, there's kind of this difference happening now in whether it's in the way the contracting is done with NASA, fixed price versus cost plus and things. And in the end, the SpaceX and Boeing, it's their vehicle. They're developing it. NASA will be customers, utilizing it, and then the market will hopefully open up for more. But it becomes, the Boeing and the SpaceX vehicle, whereas before the Space Shuttle, the space station were NASA's vehicle. And the thing that's interesting to me is we've always used commercial companies to do this. Right. It's just a little bit of a twist on the ownership in the end, kind of the relationship between the two organizations, and then
the name on the rocket.
The name on the rocket and how it can. So the partnership, I think, is just like with our international partners. I think the way this is growing and developing is really, really a positive and mutually beneficial thing.
Great. One of the things that's coming from this partnership is that there's likely going to be more space tourism. And I would love to hear your thoughts on space tourism. So both from in terms of thinking about how it might broaden people's perspectives on Earth, but also thinking about what new opportunities there are for science in space.
I think the tourism piece is critical to ensure that, Sandy talked about this perspective shift that we get as astronauts when we look back at the planet at 17,500 miles per hour, going around it every 90 minutes. And how, when I went to space, I thought my aha moment would be when I installed the Columbus laboratory from the European Space Agency. But that paled in comparison to when we broke bread with Russians and Germans and people we used to fight against, and the first female commander. It was like a Benetton commercial when we were floating over having our meal. And that piece showed me that it's about people coming together as one civilization, working as a team. And if you can get more people up there that are not professional astronauts, that are going to be bringing this experience back down to their communities, to their hometowns, that will help influence the science and the future scientists, and inspire that next generation. And I think that's what the beauty of bringing these other people that are not military test pilots. No hate there, right?
Yeah, I understand. I agree.
But bringing everyone on board to get that experience is really important.
Absolutely.
Do you think that there's also a sort of perspective shift that happens when you are that far above Earth looking down on it as well? How does it change what you think about the major issues here?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Back at home.
Absolutely. I think, even, I look at like three of us as retired NASA astronauts, and, our active friend here.
Our rookie.
And our Boeing guy who's going to be like, we want to be in their pockets, of course, to go, go back with them. If we could get that miniaturization technology, that would be awesome. But I think that, all of us feel like obligation is kind of a weird word, but like this, it's like, I feel like it's my mission now to share that experience, to bring that back to Earth. And really, we talk about it all the time. Leland and I talk about it all the time about like, there's really, I kind of sum it up like there's 3 lessons I learned from flying in space. And they are like so super simple, and I wish everybody that leaves here today would be thinking about them every day in some way, is that we live on a planet, we're all Earthlings, and the only border that matters is the thin blue line that blankets us all. And if we consider ourselves in that way,
and we're
when
Earthlings.
we look at that, we're Earthlings, Earthlings right there, yeah. It's like,
and
it changes everything you think about.
And talked about science, and from a scientific standpoint, if we don't work together as one race, the human race, we will falter. And it's not that the Earth is fragile, we're the fragile ones. The Earth will keep doing its thing, going around the planet every year, but we're going to be the ones that are going to be burped out. And so I think that we need to make sure that we look at these systems, these ecosystems, these relationships, these things that are happening on the planet to ensure that we are here in the next 50 years. And when you think about December 24th of 1968, it was when this picture was taken by Bill Anders from Apollo 8 called Earthrise. And we're at the inflection point right now. We're at the 50th anniversary of that, December 24th of 2018. What is the next 50 years going to be like? And what are we going to do collectively to ensure that we're still here?
You know, I'm sure you're asked all the time what advice you have for kids who, you know, want to get this super cool job. I'm going to ask a similar question, but with a little bit of a twist. What's something outside of the classroom that you guys did that helped prepare you for this job? Since I know you are constantly learning all the time. So what's something else?
Music. You know, it's interesting because we all get approached. What's the secret sauce? How do you become an
Where's the
astronaut?
checklist?
And what I tell everybody is have an interest. Have some other interest that doesn't involve science, technology, space. I mean, have an interest. Have a passion in life. I don't care whether it's skydiving or playing the drums or going to Patagonia. You've got to have another passion someplace else because that's what makes you uniquely different than everybody else who is incredibly intelligent that applies for these sort of programs. So that's my share.
Yeah, I would say that, well, I have a general 3-point message that I take to schools when I go talk to kids, and it's to be gritty, not stopping in the face of challenges, to be a lifelong learner, both inside and outside the classroom, and to be a good person and teammate. And I really emphasized in that last one, you know, team sports was a big part of that for me, and then going into the military and serving, but finding something bigger than you to serve and to be a part of, and working on yourself and making sure that you're taken care of so that you can have the capacity to take care of someone else. And the missions that we're training for now, you know, the low Earth orbit environment of the space station is a great place to find out what space does to our bodies. And then as we go further into our solar system, we're going to spend more time away from the comfort of Earth. And so we live with each other in a confined space for an extended period of time. And it's important that we have our things taken care of so that we can take care of one another. So being a good teammate, I think, is a huge part of that.
Great.
Yeah, ditto. No, there is. I mean, I think there's a real element to like the creativity, curiosity side of it, and you know, like the continuing to learn, and that is outside the classroom. And I love when I see students that have teachers that are engaging them outside of the classroom with what they're learning in the classroom. And I think as we become adults, we want to do that more and more too. The experiential side of it is really important. And yeah, I mean, have a passion for something. That it is not a checklist. You know, NASA has some very defined criteria, but I got a picture of my class that we were chosen in 2000. There's 17 of us, and not one of the people in that picture got there the same way. Not one.
Right.
We all wanted to be astronauts, decided that at some point, and we're fortunate enough to get in the seat in that picture, but there is not one. The story is not the same for anybody in that picture. And I think that's such a wonderful thing, because when you fly in space, further from Earth, in these more, you want a diverse group of people that are bringing the different strengths and the passions and going to make it not only professionally successful, but going to have some personality behind it too.
Yeah, when I was interviewing to become an astronaut, I think, Fergie, we were in the same week, weren't we? Mm-hmm. And we have to write an essay, and there's an hour-long interview and all these things. And I remember in my essay, I remembered something from my dad. He said to make sure that you have fun and you share the ball. I mean, I played a lot of sports and things, and I think we sometimes try to be the top and the number one, and we don't always have the ability to share. And so sharing the ball and making sure that everyone is included in the journey and in the mission. And to, again, lifelong learning, experiential learning is so important. Put the phone down for a minute and build something, create something, you know, design something. But it's sharing the ball and having a good time.
On that note, in the spirit of sharing and sort of inspired a little bit by Hidden Figures, I would love if each of you could maybe mention one person you admire who helps you get to space who is not actually an astronaut. It could be a job title or it could be a particular person who has really like helped you along the way?
I'll
Yeah, go ahead.
my family,
I-
family unit, my wife and my kids. And it's like, oh, you have to say that, but I mean, it's true.
It's absolutely
This year is our 20th year of being a Navy family, and so we've moved all over the world in service to our country, and they serve just as much as we do, and so they've been a great support structure and a great motivation. And one of the great things about this job is that we get to share. The first time I put on the spacesuit and went underwater to learn how to spacewalk, my kids were right there as I got lowered in the water, and that is, I can't tell you.
That's cool.
That alone would make this a dream job.
That is it. I mean, it really is, because there are teachers, there are professional, mentors. I mean, I know I would not have the suit on without that. But when I look
We
at
might
it
have it on, but
ultimately,
not
yeah,
flash
right. I bought it from the. But really, I mean, I love that you had your family there. And what I found to be like the key in my own personal readiness, but I think for my family as a whole, was really encouraging them to be part of my crew, to meet the people I was training with, to be at those events, to really and truly feel like they were part of my crew. So they understood what was going on before I went. Before I got home, knew what was going to be happening when I got home, and they were just an integral part of what I was experiencing every day while I was there.
Excellent. In the last few minutes of this program, and I'm sorry to cut off Leland and Chris, we actually asked our audience to send in questions from kids. So kids from all around the world have sent in some questions for these astronauts. Hopefully they're watching the live stream right now. The first one comes from Sienna, who attends an international school in Bangkok, Thailand. She actually asked a bunch of questions, so her question ends a little abruptly because we just picked one of them.
How many days do astronauts stay in space?
There was a stream. You could tell there was a stream coming. That's awesome.
There were about 7 questions. So yeah.
Good to see them.
If only one of you could answer each one, that would be great. So Leland, do you want to answer that
23
one?
days in space.
Oh, 104 days in space.
Chris?
44 total, I think.
And soon to be.
Training for a 6-month mission.
Yep.
We'll see.
Great. Okay, our next question comes from Braith, who lives in Baltimore.
More.
My name is Wayfor10Z, and is it possible to get from galaxy to galaxy?
Is it possible to get from galaxy to galaxy? Braith asks.
Thank you, dude.
I'm glad he's thinking big. Hey, we're going to have to
Please.
master this whole light speed thing, I think, before we get galaxy to galaxy. I mean, if you think about it, the nearest star is about 1 light years away, and it would take practically forever, even at today's speed, just to reach our nearest star. Galaxy to galaxy, it's out there on the horizon.
But think about it. Somebody in one of the earlier panels said something about how we have to really honor our imagination. We have to think about in the last 60 years what we've done and what was really unimaginable back then, and how we're sitting here talking to you about multiple different kinds of vehicles going to a space station, back to the moon, onto Mars. We just have to figure out how to do it.
So his question was,
Convinced.
is it possible?
Is it possible?
Is it possible?
Yeah, I think so.
Anything's possible.
He's gonna
Absolutely.
probably
Maybe one
develop-
day.
He'll develop the technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Please
Braith,
take
it's
us-
on
take
you.
us
It's on you, brother.
All right, our next question is maybe a little tricky. It's from Mia, who lives in San Francisco.
How do they make the fuel tanks balance so when they launch the rocket, it does not tip over?
That's a
This
good
girl's
question.
going to be an engineer for sure.
Dig in the shirt, too.
Yeah.
Good.
First, send us a resume. They fuel those rockets very carefully. The pressures and temperatures that they have to match when they fuel those rockets are very carefully controlled. So I would say that very carefully. And there are also some structures out there, the framework that is next to the rockets when they fuel them also provides support. But wow, that is a great question. And she's clearly thinking in the direction our NASA engineers do. So send us a resume.
The mom answer is math. But one of the cool things about the space shuttle is, and I always thought it was so interesting. It's on the launch pad, and you've got the orbiter, the white orbiter, and the 2 solid rocket boosters in the tank, and the orbiter is hanging off the tank, and then the tank is attached to the 2 boosters. And the whole thing is attached to the launch platform by 8 bolts.
Oh, wow.
4 of them at the base of each booster. And one of the super cool things about after you fly on a space shuttle is they present you, each crew member, with one of those bolts that has like pyrotechnically blown to get you to space, and they make bookends out of it. It's
Really?
really cool.
That's awesome. I really like our next question. It's from Josh from Connecticut.
Do you ever feel disconnected from Earth? Do you ever miss anyone in space?
Aw.
You know, there's so many ways in low Earth and the space station to keep in touch. I mean, we have internet now. When you think about it, you could make a phone call if you had to.
Right.
I mean, think about John Glenn making a phone call from space 60 years ago. You know, there was just something that didn't exist. So there are
conferences.
great ways to stay in touch. You can watch your family. Now, you know, we need to start think about this, however, when we reach out to Mars, where the time difference could be, you know, you can't talk real time because you're, you know, 20 or 40 minutes, depending on which side of the sun you're on. So this whole idea of long-term separation from family is something real, right? I mean, we have to deal with human emotions, and you know, our next step is going to be out to a place called the Gateway on the other side of the moon, and that's going to be interesting because it's days away instead of just hours away in low Earth orbit. So I'm pretty excited about this next step that we will take on our way to Mars.
And when you don't see Earth anymore out the window,
Right.
one of the advantages we have in the missions we've done so far is that beautiful planet is there. And quite honestly, you are separated from it, you're missing it, but I don't know about the rest of you, but I felt more connected to everything and everyone on that place than I sometimes do when I'm right down here in the middle of it. And that's what I think about. Imagine that point where you're traveling and you don't have sight of that anymore. That'll be an interesting time.
Yeah.
I watch my family eat my birthday cake while I get in space with no birthday cake. That was not cool, but
You guys brought me birthday cake.
You did bring me birthday
You
cake.
did.
So birthday cake. That's
Yeah. So you just missed the birthday cake. Unfortunately, the time is almost out, but I would love to invite everyone to give our astronauts a round of applause. They're true American heroes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Amy.
The water.